I got into my husband's car and found a tube of personal lubricant in the glove compartment. I didn't say a word. I just secretly replaced it with industrial superglue. And what happened next forced our neighbors to make an emergency call to the fire department. I'm so glad you're here. If you're watching this video, please like and subscribe to my channel and tell me in the comments where you're listening to my story of revenge from. I want to know how far it's traveled. I sat at the kitchen table. The silence in the house as thick as morning fog. A silence that had become a constant, unwelcome guest. The old clock on the wall, a wedding gift from my late mother, ticked with a relentless, accusatory rhythm. Each beat a painful reminder of a life I was beginning to suspect was a beautiful, meticulously crafted lie. My husband Julian had just returned from one of his countless business dinners. He looked not merely exhausted, but haunted, as if he carried the weight of a secret too heavy to bear. His face was a map of fatigue and guilt, lines etched around his eyes and mouth that had never been there before. He tossed his jacket on the sofa with a weariness that felt performative, loosened his tie as if it were a noose. He was desperate to escape and collapsed onto the bed, the familiar springs groaning under his weight, without even bothering to shower. The faint scent of his expensive cologne hung in the air, but it was mixed with a new alien fragrance, a sweet floral perfume that felt like an intrusion, a brazen confession from a life I didn't know he was living. A few minutes later, the gentle hum of his snoring filled the house, a sound that once brought me comfort, but now felt like a mocking lullaby. A lullaby for a fool. I got up, moving with the quiet, practiced grace of a wife of 40 years, and began to tidy up the mess he'd left in the living room. His jacket, his wallet, his cell phone, his old laptop. The phone screen was still on, a new email glowing like a sinister omen. I frowned. Julian never used email. He always said, Juliet, all this tech stuff is too complicated. I'd rather just make a call. But now an email. It was right there in plain sight. A digital ghost from a life I didn't know he was leading. Out of a morbid curiosity that felt both wrong and necessary, I opened it. The message was short, a mere handful of words that would shatter my world. You were incredible tonight, Dad. It was followed by a red heart, a symbol of affection that pierced my own heart with a cold, sharp ache. I froze as if someone had slapped me. The digital world, a cruel mirror reflecting a truth I was too terrified to see. Dad. The word echoed in my mind. Who was calling him that? And in such an intimate, affectionate tone. I swiped down, my thumb trembling, looking for more clues. But there was nothing. Just a strange email address, a jumble of meaningless characters that offered no answers, only more questions. A shiver ran through me. Not from cold, but from a profound bone-deep fear. It felt like a cold wind coming in through a crack in the door of my life, revealing a secret chamber I never knew existed. I glanced at the bedroom and saw Julian turn over with a sputtering snore, his face still and peaceful, a stark and infuriating contrast to the storm raging inside me. My heart pounded like a thief's, a frantic, guilty beat. I quickly put the phone back, my hands shaking so much I almost dropped it. I continued cleaning up, my movements now mechanical, robotic. I gathered his dirty clothes to take to the laundry. As I checked his pant pockets, I felt a folded piece of paper, crisp and new. It was a receipt from a fancy steakhouse in San Antonio, dated that very night. I frowned. San Antonio? He had told me he was meeting his partners in Dallas. A tiny bitter laugh escaped my lips. Julian hated driving to Dallas. San Antonio, on the other hand, was where his mother had lived before she passed away. He had fond memories there, a fact he had often reminded me of. But who had he had dinner with in San Antonio while lying to me about being in Dallas? The receipt showed a party of two, a bottle of expensive Cabernet Sauvignon, a wine he had bought me for our 10th anniversary. A wine I had never forgotten, and main courses of filth and pasta. I tried to remember the last time Julian took me to a place like that. Maybe 10 years ago, when I opened my first bakery. It was a memory etched in my mind. The flickering candlelight, his proud smile, the way he toasted my success. Now that memory was a lie, a faded photograph in a scrapbook of deceit. I took out my own phone and with a silent, determined resolve snapped a picture of the receipt and the email. I didn't want to believe it, but a woman's intuition, a wife of 40 years' intuition, is a deep primal knowing something was going on, and I had to find out what it was. My hands were trembling, not just with anger, but with a deep existential dread. I felt like I was standing on the edge of a cliff, about to witness the spectacular collapse of my entire life. I went to the garage. Julian's old SUV was still warm, the air thick with the smell of gasoline and that faint, sweet perfume from his clothes. I opened the door, a small cold dread gripping my stomach. I turned on my flashlight and checked every corner of the driver's seat. There was nothing out of the ordinary, just some loose change and an empty water bottle. But as I reached into the passenger side glove box, my fingers brushed against something plastic and slippery. I pulled it out and my heart almost stopped. A tube of used personal lubricant with dried residue on the cap. A sticky, damning piece of evidence. I stood there in the dark garage staring at it as if it were a dirty secret, a tangible manifestation of my worst fears. Julian and I hadn't been intimate in years. He always said he was tired. That age had sapped his desire. So what was this lubricant for? The question echoed in my mind, each syllable a hammer blow to my fragile reality. I felt paralyzed, but kept a clear head, a survival instinct kicking in. I put it back exactly where I'd found it. I wiped my hands with a napkin, scrubbing them raw, as if I were afraid the betrayal would leave a permanent mark on my skin. I continued searching, this time more carefully, more methodically. Under the back seat, I found some crumpled napkins, soaked in a sweet floral perfume that wasn't a man's and wasn't my soft, familiar rose fragrance. The scent was alien, defiant, a loud, vulgar shout of infidelity in the quiet sanctuary of our garage. I took photos of everything, the lubricant, the napkins, as if I could capture the scent in an image. I closed the car and went back inside, the weight of the evidence pressing down on me, heavier than any flour sack I had ever lifted. I sat at the kitchen table, my hands trembling uncontrollably as I picked up Julian's phone again. By this point, I was almost certain he was cheating on me. I checked his messages, but there were only work chats, cold and dry, like a desert landscape. His inbox was empty except for that one strange email. I checked the sent and draft folders. Nothing. Everything was too clean, too perfect, suspiciously so, as if he had erased every trace of his deception. A master of lies, I thought bitterly. My rage was now a cold, hard stone in my chest, and a new, more dangerous emotion began to stir within me, a desire for truth, a need to expose the lie, no matter the cost. The next morning, just as the sun rose and the soft light filtered through the window curtains, I was already awake, a ghost in my own house. The image of the lubricant, the restaurant receipt, and that email wouldn't stop swirling in my head, a venomous carousel of doubt. I stood in the kitchen, my hands busy, but my mind A frantic whirlwind. I made a simple breakfast, 2 fried eggs, some toast, and a cup of the strong black coffee Julian liked. I had barely slept all night. Julian came down looking tired, his hair a mess and his eyes still groggy. He sat at the table, grabbed his coffee cup, took a sip, and set it down, half full. I have an important meeting today, he said in a husky voice, a rehearsed line he'd used countless times before without looking me in the eye. I'm sure I'll be home late. He was so good at this, I thought. The easy lies, the casual tone, it made my blood run cold. I nodded with a strained smile, though all I wanted to do was scream. Where's the meeting? With whom? In San Antonio again. But I held back my rage, a silent fire, and simply replied, all right, be careful. He got up, gave me a light pat on the shoulder, a gesture that felt more like an afterthought than a sign of affection, and left. The door closed, leaving the kitchen in silence and me with a suspicion that was growing into a monstrous certainty. I cleared the table and washed the dishes one by one, the rhythm of the task a small anchor in the storm of my emotions. I couldn't just sit there inventing theories. I needed the truth, hard evidence. I picked up my phone and looked for the number for Mrs. Miller, a friend from years ago who had helped me so much when I first opened the bakery. She had once told me about a good private investigator who specialized in infidelity cases. Juliet, if you ever need it, I can give you Thomas's number, she had said. He's very discreet and reliable. I never thought I would need to call him, but now I had no other choice. I dialed her number, my voice trembling, each ring a drum beat of my mounting anxiety. Hello, Mrs. Miller. Can you help me get in touch with Thomas? I need him. She was silent for a few seconds, a pause that spoke volumes before answering. Juliet, what's going on? Did Julian do something? I sighed, not wanting to get into the details over the phone, my pride bruised and raw. I just need to know the truth. Can you help me? Mrs. Miller, a woman of few words but profound intuition, agreed immediately. And just an hour later, I received a message from Thomas asking me to meet him at noon at a small cafe downtown. Mrs. Roberts, please don't worry. I will help you, he wrote. The message was short, but it was enough to give me a little relief. A lifeline in a sea of deceit. At noon, I went to the cafe, a tiny place with worn wooden tables and the aroma of roasted coffee filling the air. A scent that usually comforted me but now felt strangely foreign. I chose a secluded corner where no one would notice me, a shadow in a room full of light. Thomas walked in, a middle-aged man, short and stocky, with a simple light blue shirt and philosophical eyes that seemed to read everything, to see through the surface of things. I handed him a flash drive with the photos I had taken the night before, the strange email, the restaurant receipt, the lubricant tube, and some napkins. This is all I have, I said, my voice shaky. I'm not sure, but I think my husband is cheating on me. The words tasted like ash. Thomas nodded, reviewing each image on his phone, his face impassive, a professional facade, hiding whatever thoughts he had. He carefully made notes in a small notebook. Mrs. Roberts, I understand. I'll start following Mr. Roberts this afternoon. Don't worry, I'll let you know as soon as possible. I looked at him, trying to hold back the tears that were burning my eyes. Thank you, I said softly. I just want to know the truth, whatever it may be. Thomas nodded with a compassionate look, a flicker of understanding in his eyes. I'll do my best. Go home and don't do anything to arouse suspicion. I left the cafe and walked through the crowd, but I felt a loneliness I had never experienced before. 40 years of Marriage, a lifetime built on a foundation of trust that was now crumbling beneath my feet. I had put all my trust in Julian. I always believed he was a family man, someone who would be with me through any difficulty. He was my rock, my anchor. And now here I was, hiring a stranger to follow my own husband. The irony was a bitter pill to swallow. I felt like I was in a bad movie, a character in a drama I never auditioned for. That night, as I sat in the bakery, the familiar scent of yeast and flour, a constant soothing presence, going over delivery invoices. My phone vibrated. A message from Mr. Thomas. I opened it, my heart pounding. A mile a minute, the blood roaring in my ears. It was a photo of Julian in the light blue shirt he often wore, entering a fancy restaurant, holding hands with a woman. I zoomed in on the image and my heart stopped. It was Allison, my daughter-in-law. She was wearing a tight black dress with heavy makeup, intense red lipstick, and her hair down. They didn't look like father-in-law and daughter-in-law, but like a couple on a date. Their bodies turned toward each other, a shared secret between them. I sank into my chair, my hand trembling as I held the phone. Allison, how is this possible? At family gatherings, she and Julian always acted distant, barely speaking to each other. I now realized it was a masterful act, a performance. For my benefit, Mr. Thomas sent more photos. In one, they were sitting in a secluded corner, the table decorated with candles and flowers. Allison was leaning toward him, smiling, and Julian was toasting her glass with an oddly tender gaze. I saw the photo and felt a crushing pain in my chest. In 40 years, I had never seen him look at me like that, not even when we were young. When I was that girl from San Diego with long hair and a radiant smile, he looked at me that way, a look of genuine adoration, of a love I thought was mine. Now it was hers. In the middle of the night, a video arrived from Mr. Thomas. The clock on the wall read 2 a.m. I put on my headphones, a desperate attempt to keep the secret contained, and pressed play. My hands so shaky I almost dropped the phone. In the video, Allison leaned close to Julian's ear, whispering something that made him laugh loudly, a sound that was a stranger to me. Her voice sounded sweet, her eyes sparkling under the restaurant lights. Then they got up and left, and Julian, ever the gentleman, opened the car door for her as if she were a lady and he were her lover. I replayed the video again and again, a self-inflicted torture. Each time felt like another stab to the heart. Allison, my daughter-in-law, whom I had treated like my own daughter, whom I had taught how to make our family's traditional flan. And Julian, the man I had given my whole life to, with whom I had built a family. What were they doing behind my back? Behind Daniel's back? The questions were a tidal wave, threatening to drown me. I saved all the photos and the video to a flash drive, making a note of every detail, date, time, place, even the name of the restaurant. My hands worked on autopilot, but my mind was in chaos. I didn't want to believe it. I couldn't believe Julian and Allison were capable of something so low, so cruel. But the evidence was right in front of me. Undeniable, a mountain of proof. I stayed in the bakery among trays of sweet pastries that smelled delicious. But I felt like my world was falling apart. I remembered the early days of the business when Julian would help me carry sacks of flour, when we would laugh together in that little kitchen. Our dreams as big as the sky. Now it all seemed like a distant memory, a beautiful lie I had lived for too long. The next morning, I was in the small kitchen of the bakery, holding a list of orders for a large hotel downtown. The smell of flour and vanilla, which always brought me peace, felt empty that day, a hollow comfort. As soon as I finished signing the delivery invoice, my phone vibrated in my apron pocket. I wiped my hands and my heart sank when I saw it. Was a message from the detective. Just a short sentence. Mrs. Roberts, I'm sending you more evidence. I took a deep breath, trying to stay calm, but my hands trembled as I opened the message. A series of photos appeared on the screen. The first showed Julian in his usual gray shirt, leaving a law office near the main plaza. By his side was Allison in a beige office dress, her hair in a high ponytail and huge dark sunglasses that almost covered her face. A pathetic attempt at anonymity. They were walking very close together, not like in-laws, but like a couple. Their bodies a testament to their forbidden bond. In the next photo, they were standing in front of a 4-star hotel with gleaming glass doors and a gold sign. I zoomed in, desperately looking for some sign to deny what I was seeing. But there was nothing. They looked too natural, too comfortable together, a part of a world I was not a part of. Then came a short video from Mr. Thomas. I pressed play and my heart pounded so hard I thought it would burst. A frantic drum against my ribs. The shot was from a distance, but it was clear enough to see Julian and Allison on the 3rd floor balcony of the hotel. His arm was around her waist, and she was resting her head on his shoulder, her long hair moving softly in the wind. And then, like a stab, I saw them share a quick kiss without trying to hide. It was a brief kiss, but it was enough to burn away the last spark of hope I had left. I replayed the video frame by frame, each image digging deeper into my soul. A slow, agonizing descent into hell. The room curtain opened slightly, and Allison came out, running to hug Julian. Her face lit up with happiness, as if she were a young girl in love. I slumped into the chair, clutching the edge of the table to keep from falling apart. Mr. Thomas wrote, they also rented the room for the afternoon. It looks like they're staying the night. I'll keep an eye on them. I read the message over and over, my throat tight as if I were being strangled. Just a few hours earlier, Julian had written to me, Juliet, I won't be home tonight. I have to meet a potential partner from out of town. Get some rest. The tone was sweet and caring, just as it had been for years. But now I knew it was all a lie. A well-constructed lie. A potential partner from out of town. He wasn't out of town. He was here in a 4-star hotel with our own daughter-in-law. I opened my portable hard drive and carefully saved every photo and every video. Each time I hit save, I looked at the image as if to make sure I wasn't dreaming. In the video, Julian's gaze toward Allison was so tender. The way he caressed her hair reminded me of the way he used to do it with me more than 30 years ago. We were young, and I believed our love would last forever. A promise whispered under a starry San Diego sky. Now seeing this, all I saw was lies and blatant betrayal. I remembered family gatherings, everyone sitting around the table, a tableau of our perfect family. Allison always sat far away from Julian. Sometimes she even looked at him with disgust. Daniel would joke, Mom, I think Allison can't stand Dad. She avoids him like the plague. I believed it too. I thought they just didn't get along, that she was just trying to fit into the family. But now I understood it had all been a farce, a carefully choreographed dance of deception. They acted too well in front of me, in front of Daniel, in front of the whole neighborhood. I felt like a fool, a blind wife, betrayed by 2 traitors. Right in front of my eyes. People were going about their lives unaware of what was happening on that hotel balcony. But Mr. Thomas had captured the perfect moment, like a silent hunter, a snapshot of my reality. I replied to him, Thank you. Please keep watching. I need to know everything. He answered briefly, I will Stay calm. That night, I returned to the house that had been my home with Julian. It felt foreign now, a place of ghosts and lies. I opened the dresser drawer and took out a thick envelope, my hands moving with a grim determination. I printed all the evidence, photos of Julian and Allison leaving the lawyer's office, photos of them entering the hotel, photos of them on the balcony, and every frame of the video. I carefully arranged them, sealed the envelope, and hid it at the bottom of the drawer under old family photos. I looked at a photo of the four of us: Julian, Allison, Daniel, and me at Daniel's birthday party a few years ago. Allison was smiling, hugging Daniel tightly, while Julian stood beside me, with his arm on my shoulder, looking proud. Now looking at it, all I wanted was to rip it to pieces, to tear the image of their smiling faces from my life. The next morning, just before dawn, I heard the front door open slowly. Julian staggered in, smelling of alcohol. The partner was too difficult, Juliet, he complained in a raspy voice, his eyes red as if he'd been up all night. I had to drink a lot. I'm dead tired. I was in the kitchen with a glass of water in my hand, watching him perform while feeling like he was rubbing salt in a wound. Rest, I replied calmly, as always, the practiced voice of a wife. You have to go to work tomorrow. He nodded, gave me a pat on the shoulder as if nothing had happened, and dragged himself to the bedroom. Minutes later, he was snoring peacefully, as if he'd never cheated on me, as if he'd never gone to a hotel with our own daughter-in-law. When I was sure Julian was asleep, my phone vibrated. It was a call from the detective, Mr. Thomas. His voice was low, almost a whisper, as if he feared someone would overhear him. Mrs. Roberts, I recorded their conversation in the hotel parking lot. I used special equipment. They didn't even notice. I'm sending it to you now. My heart pounded hard, but I simply replied, thank you, Thomas. Send me the file. Minutes later, an audio file appeared in my messages. I put on my headphones, sat at the table, and pressed play. The first thing I heard was Allison's voice, cold and ambitious, a stranger's voice. Dad, hurry up with that fake contract. I want to have that whole chain of stores already. I want that old hag out of the house. I felt a blow to my chest and gripped the phone tightly. Then came Julian's voice, deep and confident. Don't worry about those papers. Juliet doesn't know anything. Leave it in my hands. She trusts me too much. It felt like a knife twisting in my heart. They weren't just cheating on me. They were planning to take everything I had built. The bakery chain. All the sweat, tears, and sleepless nights. Baking every batch. Running all over town to make deliveries to keep my reputation. It was all mine. Julian never once got his hands dirty in the kitchen. He never worked the counter or signed contracts with hotels. And now he and Allison wanted to take it all away, to kick me out of the house I had made a home. I almost broke down, but I still had the composure to copy the audio to the flash drive where I kept the other evidence. I carefully wrote down the time and place, as if trying to keep myself steady in the middle of the storm. The next morning, as I made coffee in the bakery, my phone vibrated again. Thomas sent another batch of new photos taken with a telephoto lens. In them, Julian and Allison were inside his car with a thick pile of papers in front of them. Allison had a red pen and was marking the document intently. Julian, next to her, nodded and smiled as if he were in full agreement. Thomas wrote, I overheard something. It seems they want to use a contact at the notary's office to make the transfer. I'll investigate further. I zoomed in on the photo. I could see the letters on the paper, though I couldn't read them. But I knew these weren't normal work papers. They were planning to steal everything I had worked for, step by step. I sat there, among the trays of sweet pastries that smelled so delicious. But I felt as if my whole world was collapsing. I reopened the audio file, put on my headphones, and listened to every phrase, every word they said. That wretched old woman. That's what Allison called me. I remembered the days when she had just joined the family. When I taught her how to make rice, when I hugged her like a daughter. I thought she was part of the family, that she would be the woman who, along with Daniel, would build a future. And Julian, the man I had loved since I was a girl in San Diego, who swore he would be with me until the end. They had made a joke of me, a fool who still believed in love and family. A regular customer came in, Mrs. Peterson, who always bought pastries for her grandchildren. Juliet, your bakery has been packed lately. Your chain of stores is expanding. I'm so proud of you, she said, her voice warm. I forced a smile and replied, thank you. I'm doing my best. But inside, I was a wreck. I wondered what she would think. If she knew the truth, would she see me as a strong woman or just a fool? Betrayed by her husband and daughter-in-law? I wrapped Mrs. Peterson's pastries, said goodbye at the door, and sank into my chair, my hands on my head. I wanted to cry, but no. Tears came. Instead, a silent rage burned inside me like the fire in an oven, ready to ignite at any moment. That night at dinner, I sat across from Julian in the small kitchen under the yellow light that gave his face a strange, distorted glow. He ate and spoke in a monotone voice, as if nothing were wrong, as if the world wasn't about to end for him. Juliet, I have to sign some important business papers this week. Maybe you should look them over. They're complicated. I picked up a piece of bread and pretended to take a bite, but in my head I could only hear Allison's voice from the recording. Dad, hurry up and sign the fake contracts. I knew he was testing the waters. He wanted to drag me into his dirty plan. I gave him a dry smile, a facade of a wife who was too tired to argue, and replied, yes, I'll look at them later. I'm tired now. He nodded, took a sip of wine, looking at me as if nothing were wrong. But I knew that behind that smile was a man ready to take everything I had built, a predator waiting for the right moment to strike. Julian had a few more glasses of wine. His face turned red, and he started slurring his words about a difficult client he'd seen that day. I nodded as if I were listening, but inside I wanted to scream, do you think I'm that stupid? When he got up, staggering, and went to the bedroom, I cleared the table, my every move slow, containing the anger that was boiling inside me. He threw himself on the bed, snoring loudly, and left his car keys on the nightstand, gleaming under the dim light, a siren's call to my revenge. I stared at them, my heart pounding in my chest. This was my chance, my moment. I entered the bedroom slowly, careful not to make a sound. Every step felt like walking between pain and resolve, between the past and a new unknown future. I grabbed the keys, squeezed them tight, and went straight to the garage. The night was quiet, hushed, as if the world was holding its breath. All I could hear were crickets outside. They're chirping a soundtrack to my silent fury. I turned on my phone's flashlight. The weak light illuminated Julian's old SUV, a silent accomplice in his betrayal. I opened the door. The smell of gasoline was still there, mixed with a strange, sweet perfume. I opened the glove compartment between the seats, and there it was, the tube of lubricant with a loose cap and dried residue on the edge, a monument to their infidelity. I held it in my hand, feeling like I was holding a dirty secret. It was clear. They had used it again, as if it were confirmation that Julian and Allison were still playing their secret game, their twisted little dance. I took the tube of lubricant to the kitchen, placed it on the counter, and washed my hands with lemon soap. I scrubbed them thoroughly, as if to erase every trace of the betrayal I had just touched. The fresh scent didn't calm my anger, but it helped me stay focused. I opened the tool drawer and took out a tube of clear industrial superglue, the same kind I once used to fix a chair at the bakery. It was a tool of my trade, now a weapon of my revenge. I carefully unscrewed the cap of the lubricant and filled the tube with the glue, drop by drop, until it was completely full. I wiped the nozzle, shook it gently to mix it, and tested a little. It came out smoothly, just like the original lubricant. At a glance, no one would notice the difference. I smiled faintly, though a hurricane was raging inside me. This wasn't a game. It was the first step to getting justice. I put the tube back in the glove compartment, adjusted the floor mat and the seat just as they were, as if no one had touched anything before closing the car. I opened the trunk to check. There were only crumpled bags, an empty water bottle, and an unused condom lying in a corner. My heart skipped a beat, but I wasn't surprised anymore. I took pictures with my phone, adding them to the growing collection of evidence. Each image was another piece, a reminder that I couldn't let Julian and Allison get away with their lies.